Like it or not, epoxy rivers have become a staple in the woodworking community. After someone saw my recent Blacktail Studio guitar build, they reached out to have their very own epoxy river guitar made. If you've been thinking about trying to make your own, or just like pretty wood and black epoxy, stick around and make this thing with me. I'll admit, I tried getting the customer to stray away from the whole epoxy aspect of this because I didn't want my channel to become known for only this style of guitar. No matter what I said, they wanted to stick to this design, so I had to think outside of the box on how to make it different. Things like body shape, wood selection, pickups choices, and finish all came into play to make this thing different from the rest. Luckily, I had some gorgeous figured Bastogne walnut left over along with some ash for the body, Wenge for the fretboard, and black veneer for some personal touches. I've been working hard recently to grow the wooden hobbyist brand along with Scarlet Guitars, and it sometimes feels impossible if I have to take on commission work. The problem with taking on commissions is I'm at the customer's mercy on being creative, and I don't get to give away these guitars to channel members or charities like I'd prefer. Anyways, my buddy Sean and I have been developing a beginner guitar maker course that aims at helping everyday woodworkers successfully get into the art of guitar making by using our very own templates. These acrylic templates have been meticulously designed to get rid of most of the guesswork in guitar building, and it allows woodworkers to focus on all the fun parts. Whether you play guitar or not, the templates allow for a complete functioning guitar build on your very first try. I'll leave a link to the templates in the description, and I'll drop the course link whenever it's ready. If you're new here and haven't heard the story of how I acquired this Bastogne walnut, I'll give a brief overview. In our last guitar build, we reached out to Cam at Blacktail Studio to make some guitars inspired by his work. He graciously offered some huge chunks of this stuff to make some guitars to give away to charity, and also to anyone who subscribed to the channel. Problem was, we had to drive all the way to Portland, Oregon from St. Louis, Missouri, and if you don't already know, that's not your average hike. It was a 30-hour one-way drive. Sean and I chose to drive because the pieces would have been too much to ship, and we didn't want to pass up on the opportunity to meet Cam and see his shop in person. He also gave us the massive Clara walnut burl that we will be making another giveaway guitar out of this year. If you want a chance to win one of our guitars, consider becoming a member. We will be giving away 3 custom-made guitars by December to members only, and the best part is, there aren't a lot of members, so your chances of winning are huge. If you live in the USA, we will likely deliver it in person like we did to the last winner, Michael Grove. Michael is a super cool dude, and it was awesome to meet him in person and to be able to see the look on his face when he first picked up the guitar. Just click on the join button under this video and you'll be entered to win. Every month you're a member, you get an additional entry. And every dollar you spend on our website, you'll get an additional entry. This helps support our efforts in focusing on giving the guitars away to charity and to those who wouldn't normally be able to purchase a custom guitar. Right now is the perfect time to show you my first major mistake. I wasn't paying attention and added glue to the wrong side of the body, and almost completely ruined it. After spending too much time cleaning up all the glue, I was able to get it flipped over and start the veneering process. I wanted a thin slice of black veneer to separate the top, walnut, and ash body. I felt it would add depth and tie into the black epoxy later. Normally, I'd use a vacuum press, but mine crapped out and it's honestly a bigger pain to get out and set it up rather than to just clamp to a flat surface. If there's any advice I could give about building a guitar, it's to maintain a clean and accurate centerline. If you utilize a proper centerline, you can essentially turn any shape or material into a guitar. It's important because it keeps your bridge, pickups, and neck in perfect alignment. That being said, I spent a little extra time here aligning the black veneer and ash glue-up lines so they could act as a base centerline. The more you know. For the top, as I mentioned, the customer wanted a black epoxy river look. Epoxy and I have a love-hate relationship. It requires so much forethought and aftercare to get it right. My shop is only moderately temperature controlled, so I have to run a heater 24/7 in the cold months or the epoxy won't cure properly. I also hate making molds, which is why I overuse silicone at the end rather than spend too much time making a properly fitted form. It looks like gobbledygook, but it doesn't matter because it saves me time. I post build progression pictures on my other social media platforms and got a few people that gave me some interesting insight when they saw this stage of the build. For some reason, they were caught off guard by the look of the top. To me, it's just an epoxy and walnut top. Nothing too crazy. But to them, it was much more. They said it looked like a guitar ussy. Whatever that is. Maybe I should make an OnlyFans page for guitar tops then. I wonder if that would take off. Mother Nature throwing subtle hints at us is something that could potentially be monetized. After marking the center lines, I rough cut the top and the body to a guitar shape-ish, leaving just enough left over to trim and flush trim later. In my last video, I mentioned how I hate changing bandsaw blades and would rather take the time cutting stuff out slowly than ruining a good resaw setup. Quite a few people commented and told me to get another bandsaw, and I actually did, but not in a conventional way.
We recently installed a bandsaw, and this one doesn't have a home.
What? You're
fucking lying. You drove 10 hours out here, and so I thought there'd be no better home than another starter YouTube channel.
If you know who that is, you don't want to miss on the next build video. It's going to be insane. Needless to say, this will be the last time you ever see me use a resawing blade to cut out along curved shapes. Woodworking YouTubers are the reason I got into woodworking and guitar building. It's been an absolute honor to meet and connect with some of the very YouTubers I started watching whenever learning how to do all this stuff. Now that my own channel is growing, I want to learn more about you all watching right now. If you're a woodworker of any sort, how did you get started in this craft? How long have you been doing it? And what's your favorite thing to build? Let's have a conversation about it. Maybe I can learn something from you. And what about guitar players? I clearly love making guitars because it's something near and dear to me. I picked up my first guitar almost 30 years ago when I was about 7 years old. That guitar was an old Yamaha acoustic and it belonged to a father figure of mine. I remember doing my best to play Smoke on the Water and Crazy Train, and I constantly scratched my CDs because I kept forcing them to rewind in the boombox so I could try to learn certain parts by ear. I was lucky enough to have parents that would take me to Walmart to get new CDs after I destroyed them in my never-ending quest to learn my favorite childhood songs. The past 5 years, my guitar playing flame has kind of dimmed, but it's been reignited by building them. So I hope I can convince some of you to try and make a guitar one day for the same experience. I should probably point out that I rounded over the edges extra deep to give myself a reference point to attempt a tiny carved top detail. Before I get to that, I wanted to knock out anything that relies on center lines. This neck pocket and pickups template make it super easy to locate, drill, and flush trim for all the cavities, no matter what your material consists of. I should probably mention there are 1,000 ways to make a guitar and templates are just one way. I'll probably never be good enough to shape one perfectly by hand, so I'll likely never try that. I like efficiency and the ability to focus more on making them pretty instead. I hope to make more shapes and sizes for templates, and I'm curious, if you were to make a guitar and haven't before, what would be the first body shape and headstock style you'd go for? What about scale length? Regardless, I'm doing another giveaway in this video for a set of templates. I'll randomly select 3 commenters to win a full template kit of their choice, and members will automatically get 10 additional entries. Maybe I'll even customize it for you if you win. I started carving away at this and realized how much I actually hate carving things by hand. The constant sharpening and patience needed was not on my to-do list that day. So I chose the Dremel route instead. It was much more pleasant and consistent. I probably could have gone deeper and more pronounced, but my only goal was a nice profile around the body. There's no exact science to this sort of thing, so it was kind of a free-for-all until it looked the way I wanted. That being said, I'm not a huge fan of carved tops anyway, so I probably won't be doing this again, at least for a while. Another reason I like using templates is the ease of locating and cutting things. I developed this to be a sort of three-piece electronics cavity system, where one is for the main cavity, another is for the lid recess, and a third is for the lid. There are little holes to mark out exactly where to place the magnets or fasteners to hold the lid into place as well. Getting all this bodywork done before working on the neck is crucial in my opinion. I find it's more beneficial to complete one entire thing before moving on to the next part. It's a shitty feeling when you work really hard and finish a neck, then realize you have more work to do on the body. Later on, off camera, I ended up painting these cavities with a black, copper, and graphite infused shielding paint rather than my normal copper tape. I'll leave a link below to the one I used. I messed up again by not pre-routing the wiring channels before gluing on the top. In fact, I always forget to do that. That's why I have this unnecessarily long drill bit to make quick work of it. Okay, time for my favorite part. I had some unique ideas for this neck and fretboard. The goal was to keep the entire back of the guitar as the same ash color while the fretboard was dark, figuratively extending the epoxy river up the neck. I lucked out with this board also having some super nice straight grain across the headstock as well. So I made sure to trace out the rough area I wanted it to be before moving on to the truss rod channel. I've used Wenge for a fretboard before and love the look and feel of it. It's also much easier to work than ebony or rosewood, but it does have the tendency to chip more often. I think it contrasts really well with the lighter colored woods and brass or gold accents. Doing things like this remind me of why I really like making guitars. I've always been drawn to the natural wood grain facing guitars, but every time I'd find one, I'd always want to change something about it. Whether it be the fretboard, inlays, or body shape, making my own guitars has allowed me to completely be creative in the turnout rather than just stuck with what the big companies say is best for me. It also saves me from spending thousands of dollars for someone else to make it for me. Just a thought. Once the fretboard was glued on, getting the shape you want is easy with just a few steps. First step being rough cutting and flush trimming to the neck template. Centerlines make this extremely easy. Okay, I'll shut up for a bit and just let you see this process. You may notice I drilled the holes for the tuners already. I do that before thinning the headstock just in case I get new chip out. And if you're wondering, I use a 7/16 or 11mm brad point bit for the perfect tuner hole size. I typically leave my non-angled headstocks around a 1/2 inch thick, depending on the tuners I get. It may seem flimsy, but it's way stronger than any Gibson headstock you may come across. If this is your first time seeing one of my builds, you'll quickly learn that I take many unorthodox approaches to inlays. For these, I had some 1/8 inch brass tubing left over from a prior build. The tubing generally acts as a brass ring, and I like to fill these brass rings with different materials. Quick note, if you can't find any of your hammers, the handle of a chisel works well in most scenarios. As I said, I'm a bit unorthodox with inlays, which is why I wanted to try flocking material as a filler. It was a bold choice to experiment on a commissioned piece, but I was pretty confident it would work out. I just packed it super tight and filled it with thin CA glue to harden it. And it honestly came out a lot cleaner than just using black CA glue or black epoxy. I tried rough shaping the neck with this large roundover bit, but the end result really wasn't good enough, so I finished it up with the table edge bit you see me use often, but that was off camera. Doing it this way has always provided me with the most consistency before final shaping and size. The more I dive into this craft, the more I notice there are really two types of guitar makers. Those who do almost everything with a CNC, and those who are purists who think the type of hand plane you use affects tone. Neither are my cup of tea. I like to see myself as a hybrid hobbyist. Most woodworkers are exactly that, actually, combining the power tools and hand tools we have to get a desired outcome. Which is why I believe most woodworkers can easily build a guitar. I often read comments from people talking about how they build stuff, but a guitar just seems too intimidating, and I promise you it's way easier than it looks. I feel like there's some sort of gatekeeping or deception from big guitar companies involving things like tone wood, the right fretboard radius, hardware materials, and all other sorts of bullshit. Just make a guitar, and you'll be happy you did. And if you ever have any questions about tackling one yourself, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll happily help any way I can. Walrus Oil sent me their Furniture Butter Kit, and I can honestly say it's my new favorite oil finish. You're able to buff it up to extremely fine grits to get a satin finish that feels like glass, and it smells amazing too. Just look at it go in this wood. Okay, that was super satisfying. I bent and cut these fret wires off camera because it can look boring sometimes. I had some issues and may or may not have had to remove them all after installing them because I didn't cut the fret slots deep enough. No matter, at least you get to see what it looks like. And I'll be honest, I had some hiccups in the build and got so frustrated I didn't think about recording installing the hardware and the pickups. That being said, here's some more finishing before you get the final reveal. If you like how this turned out and you want to see more, I really hope I can get your subscription, and I appreciate you watching. you.